Just so I'm sure on the format, is it the same as what you sent in the email to me a little bit ago?
Yeah, and I'll read that out just to be sure that everybody's on the same page, as I know this one was like a different format from usual. So, opening of 10 minutes from Jaden, then cross exams, 5 minutes of Jaden questioning Tom, then 5 minutes of Tom questioning Jaden. How strict do you guys want it to be on that? Like some people want like, hey, like just for real, like let's just stick to where only one person's asking the questions. Presumably that's what we're going to do because we have open dialogue later where it's a lot more free flowing. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Well, I said I wanted to give all my time to my cross exam side or whatever.
So you don't want to ask questions to Jaden?
No, I want to spend like, so if I'm not doing a 10-minute opening, I'm doing like a 30-second opening or whatever. I can take my 9 minutes left and add that to my cross exam time, my time for me to ask questions.
Oh, you want to ask more questions
Yeah.
to Jaden,
Yeah.
and you'd rather do like a 1 minute opening. That's right, because we did, yeah. Jaden asked if you could do an opening because that way he has something that I actually can cross-examine you about.
Yep.
So, Jaden, are you okay with Tom's opening being only 1 minute?
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, it's whatever. But would increasing the cross exam time decrease the conversation time that you had allotted in the email for 40 minutes?
Yeah, I was under the impression that it
Oh,
would be open dialogue that would be increased.
that sounds good
Are you
too.
guys
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a
okay?
separate section, so that's fine.
Works for me. So in that case, I have 10 minute opening from Jaden, 1 minute opening from Tom, 5 minutes of each of you cross-examining each other, and then switched. So another 5 minutes. It's just, alternate. And then open dialogue for 40 minutes, closings of 5 or less minutes. If you don't want yours, and then audience Q&A.
You
Let me
said
know though.
we would have 5-minute rebuttals in between cross exam rounds. Did I read that
Oh,
correct?
you're right. I'm sorry about that. There is a 5 minute rebuttal uh, that Jaden would have between the cross exams. So in other words, like 5 minutes, Jaden asking Tom questions and vice versa. Then a 5 minute rebuttal from Jaden. Tom, if you want, you can still have a 5 minute rebuttal
Sure.
if you want. And so it's like kind of like what we discussed. Not a big deal. Any last questions before we go?
Tom, do you prefer if I call you Tom or TJump or something else?
King Master of the Universe.
Okay, I got you. I don't know what you call me. Some people just call me Jaden or Jay for short, so whatever works for you.
I like it. And what I'm gonna do is let me just check to see if my Yeti. Oh, my Yeti's not. Okay, let me just work on this. Check. 1, 2, 3. Cool. All right, that's good. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. All right. Looks like we're pretty much ready to go. So what I'm gonna do is well, all right, great. I'm gonna start the stream and then we'll be off to the races. So this is just the pre-debate screen, so they won't see or hear us yet. And then should have a good connection using Ethernet. Really excited about that. And yeah, thanks for being here, guys. And Jaden, if you have a link you want me to add to the description box, let me know, and I will happily add that for you. You don't have to, but even if it's not your own, like if you're just like, well, I love this apologist, I want it, please just put Reasonable Faith's link or something like that. That works too.
No links to provide at this time. Just chilling.
You got it. Well, I think it's live. Excellent. It is. All right, cool. All right, 3, 2, 1. Here I go. Ready, set. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Modern Day Debate. Today we are debating whether or not Christianity is true, and we are starting right now with Jaden's opening statement. Thanks for being with us, Jaden. The floor is all yours for that 10-minute opening.
Thank you, James. This evening, we are debating on the question, is Christianity true? I will be answering in the affirmative and my opponent in the negative. I'll be defending two arguments for the truth of Christianity this evening. It is important to note that when I reference Christianity or God, I'm referring to belief in the triune God described in the Apostles' Creed, the Athanasian Creed, the Nicene Creed, and the Gospels. Though it is an important issue, I will not be defending the inerrancy or any interpretation of the Bible, except that it is directly related to the issue that I will be addressing this evening, which is the defining and the defending of the triune God and the historical accounts of Jesus' resurrection. First argument I'll be presenting is called the transcendental argument for God. The argument goes like this. The triune God is the precondition for moral absolutes and obligations, the uniformity of nature, and universal laws of logic. Moral absolutes and obligations, the uniformity of nature, and universal laws of logic exist. Therefore, the triune God exists as their precondition. How exactly is the existence of the triune God the precondition? Because of the impossibility of the contrary. I argue that other than Christianity, no other worldview can serve as the precondition. For a case study, my opponent, Tom, noted in his video entitled Why Atheists Are Right, My Epistemology, the Pseudoscience of Religious Apologetics, that, quote, truth and knowledge in the bottom-up world, the atheistic world, are always tentative and defeasible, never absolute, and always open to revision. This is because if there is no world above ours, whatever we think is true or is happening here in the world may not be true or may not be happening in the world above ours. Close quote. Given this prescription or description of truth and knowledge, my opponent denies the existence of absolutes when it comes to truth and knowledge. I must ask if such a conclusion is absolutely true. I would say, given my opponent's worldview, it is not. Is it true for all time that one ought to love their neighbor rather than eat their neighbor? According to my opponent's worldview, maybe. The school of science is dependent upon uniformity in nature, aka the inductive principle, which posits that the future will be like the past. For example, the gravity which holds us here, where we are now, will still be working in 5 minutes. How does one know if the universe is uniform in this manner? Well, it is certainly not through current or past sense experiences, such as noted by the atheistic philosopher Bertrand Russell when he says, the answer to this question, the question of the problem of induction, is not from an argument which starts from past futures alone. We have therefore still to seek for some principle which shall enable us to know that the future will follow the same laws as the past. Given this, as well as my opponent's previous statement, the uniformity of nature is quite surprising in a world where truth is only tentative, defeasible, and not absolute. What about universal laws of logic, such as the law of identity, contradiction, and the excluded middle? Such laws are universal, immaterial, and objective in nature, and are not mere human conventions, for there are Eastern and Western thinkers who deny, for example, the law of non-contradiction. This would be the yin and the yang. However, to do so is to join the parade of absurdity. Can such laws of logic exist in a chance universe? To quote Bertrand Russell again, quote, the universe is all spots and jumps without any unity, without continuity, without coherence or orderliness. Indeed, there is little but prejudice and habit to be said for the view that there is a world at all, close quote. Such is a world where truth and knowledge are defeasible, tentative, not absolute, and always subject to change. However, the Christian worldview has no such problems. On the Christian worldview, the triune God creates and sustains all things. Thus, uniformity in the laws of logic makes sense as universal, immaterial, absolute truths. His goodness, justice, and holiness are reflected in the moral laws and obligations he gives men and women, which demand that one love his neighbor rather than eat his neighbor. Again, the transcendental argument for God is as follows. The triune God is the precondition for moral absolutes and obligations, the uniformity of nature, and universal laws of logic. Moral absolutes and obligations, the uniformity of nature, and universal laws of logic exist. Therefore, the triune God exists as their necessary precondition. The triune God serves as the precondition for such things because of the impossibility of the contrary, and it is incumbent upon my opponent to explain how his atheistic worldview provides the proper precondition for the three things noted in the argument. The second argument I'll be presenting this evening is the argument from the resurrection of Jesus Christ. My argument is that the resurrection of Jesus is the best explanation for the following evidences. The discovery of Jesus' tomb is multiply attested in very early independent sources which were utilized by both Mark and Matthew in the writings of their gospel accounts of the discovery of the empty tomb. Mark was written between 55 to 70 AD, and Matthew was written at a similar timeline between 55 to 80 AD, historians tell us. The Apostle Paul's writings to the church in Corinth years after the death of Jesus presupposes the tomb in Jerusalem was empty when it says that Christ is risen from the dead. I'll provide more on the importance of Jerusalem in a moment. The second historical evidence is that the earliest Jewish polemic presupposes the empty tomb. In the Gospel of Matthew, when the religious leaders hear report from the guards about the supposed resurrection of Jesus, they inform the guards to tell the people that the disciples have stolen the body. They did not instruct the soldiers to go to the tomb, open it up, and parade Jesus' body around the town and show them that the disciples' claims were clearly false. Of course, the latter would have been the easiest way to snuff out teachings of the disciples, but the latter was not an available option. Why? Because the tomb was empty. Also, the theft of the disciples was highly improbable given that there were Roman guards posted at Jesus' tomb when these men were mere fishermen and not trained soldiers, such as attested to in Matthew's gospel. Thirdly, there are several post-mortem appearances of Jesus following his death to over 500 eyewitnesses. Such appearances and eyewitness testimonies are recorded in the historical books of 1 Corinthians, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which were all estimated by the majority of biblical historians to be written prior to 100 AD. Lastly, the origin of the Christian faith geographically can be traced back to Jerusalem, where Jesus had been crucified. Following the death of Jesus just outside of Jerusalem, his disciples declared the resurrection of Jesus to the point of their own death. Upon this declaration, the Christian faith began to grow to Samaria and to the Gentile nations. This once again supports the fact that the tomb was empty. If it wasn't, the original religious leaders and non-believing Gentiles would simply have had to produce the body of Jesus to disprove this movement. But they did not, because they could not, because the tomb was empty. And it is highly improbable that the disciples stole Jesus' body, but even if they did, it would be highly more improbable that they would be willing to die for something that they directly, by first-hand knowledge, knew was a lie. Thus far, I have presented two arguments for the truth of Christianity, aka the triune God, until my opponent shows in detail that both of these arguments do not support the truth of Christianity, and in their place raises an argument or arguments for the falsehood of Christianity, then one should reasonably conclude Christianity to be true. Thank you all for hosting me. Thank you for having me, Tom. Thank you for doing this debate. I end my opening statement.
Forgive me. This is rare. I've never had this error before, but it says an encoder error occurred while streaming. NVENC error, encode API internal error. I don't know what this means, but what it functionally means is that the stream stopped. So I am really sorry about that. So what we have to do is first I've got to try to restart this and see if OBS actually starts working. It was just in the last 2 minutes, maybe the last 60 seconds even. So I am really sorry about that. I don't know what caused it, and I'm looking into it now. So let's see. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if I can.
Hearing me again, I guess.
It's probably, well, since we're so early into it. Okay, we are streaming now. Let's see if we are able to like connect back to the original. I don't think we're going to be able to connect back to the original stream. I think it probably ended, but let's see. Otherwise, worst case scenario. What?
Got more time to prepare, Tom. You know what's coming.
I mean, precept's already been debunked, and testimony of the resurrection's already been debunked, so my work's been done.
Well, there you go then. Could be a pretty simple up and down.
Yeah, pretty simple.
So OBS is just for some reason not looking like it's. So the internet connection is fine. I tested that several times today.
NVINC is
Um,
the graphics card. It means the graphics card. What's it called? The driver issue. NVINC is usually NVIDIA.
hmm. Think you're right. I got to figure out like how to fix that. Let me just.
Yeah. You usually need to update the drivers on your graphics card. So you go to NVIDIA, the website, download, find whatever your graphics card is, and do the
Hey,
download
everybody.
thing.
Welcome to Modern Data. The only strange thing is that the stream is still going now to Twitter. So it seems to, and then it seems to still be going to Kick and Twitch, but it's having trouble with YouTube. Um, I don't understand why. It is dropping a ton of frames though, which is just strange for. So it is being sent to Twitter. It's being sent everywhere except YouTube. Except it's also having a ton of drop frames as if the internet was like really weak.
Oh, it's not the internet, it's the graphics card. Your graphics card is doing the work, and the graphics card doesn't have the right encoder update.
I'm sorry, you've been wrong too many times for me to like take you seriously. Let me think about this. Um, hmm. So yeah, it's dropping 64% of the frames. If it were the graphics card genius, then why would it be streaming to Twitter and Kick and Twitch everywhere except YouTube? Can't believe
Because
it's wrong.
YouTube has more
Sure.
information that it gets from the encoder.
It doesn't make any sense. Like you just made something up and it's not even coherent. Okay, let me see here. We just had this spinning wheel here. So I think worst case scenario, we have to reschedule because OBS is kind of my go-to.
Remove James's face to save pixels. It's a good idea. I like it.
Let's see.
So people have messaged me and they say they're watching YouTube, but they're seeing and hearing everything we're currently doing.
It might be that they're just watching like the video on demand of when we were talking before.
Yeah, it takes a
Like, I
while to
don't,
update. There's a delay.
Oh,
He's not actually live.
all right. Yeah.
It's live on my
it's
end.
just for some reason.
They might be watching it on my channel.
Let's see. Yeah, still dropping about 60% of frames. Um,
You do know there's literally a setting in OBS where you tell your graphics card to do the processing for you, and that's probably what you're doing. And because you don't have the right update, that's probably why it's dropping frames.
what I'll do is, before we give up, I will check OBS if it needs updates. Check my computer if it needs updates.
Graphics
If
card.
those work,
Graphics
then
card.
we'll be good. Otherwise, we'll have to reschedule. I am sorry about that.
Graphics card. Check graphics card.
Yeah, Tom, there
There are
was.
some things that can be updated, but they don't mention graphics card, and that makes sense because Tom usually doesn't know what he's talking about. But for all the things that it is updating, it will probably be okay. Because whatever's wrong, there were a lot of things OBS listed.
Literally, NVINC is an NVIDIA thing. It's literally the NVIDIA encoder. NVIDIA makes graphics cards. GPU.
I didn't see it in the list, Tom. I mean, it
That's
wouldn't surprise me if you were wrong, but
literally never happened. I mean, you can Google it and find out I'm right as normal. Usually I'm right.
I mean, I didn't see it in the list. So if this fixes it, it
It's
would probably mean you're wrong. But
because it doesn't show up for minor drivers in the list. The list is for major drivers.
what we're gonna do is start streaming.
Can you stream it? Yes.
Oh, still dropping a lot of frames even after the updates.
Wow. I wonder why.
Well, if it was the graphics card, it would have listed it in the needed updates. Duh, Tom.
No, because the needed updates don't show for every minor operating system. It doesn't.
See, Tom has
Literally doesn't.
some sort of ad hoc response for everything. Something he makes it up. But let's see.
Yes, that's a good idea. I can just give the response to my audience because people are watching, and then reschedule or whatever later.
I mean, I'm getting a lot of messages of people just saying they're watching on Tom's channel if you wanted to keep going, because rescheduling would be difficult, at least if you wanted to do it within the next 2 weeks.
That's okay with me. If you guys would like to, I'm not offended at all. I have a ton of work that I've got to do, so I'm not offended at all. It's totally okay if you guys want to do that.
Sounds fine.
I will let you guys do that then. But yeah, so no hard feelings on my part, I promise. And I'll figure that out. And thanks, guys, for your patience.
Sure. Settings, camera, video, Cam link. Close. That one. Yes, James ended the Zoom because his computer broke and he doesn't know how to fix his drivers. James rage quitted. James did rage quit. That is what happened. James raged quit. All right, I'll send. To what's his name? Logan. Thanks, Unseely Xenog, I guess. Yeah, so I don't have Logan's contact information. Do I ever find anyone smart or competent to debate? Yeah, I used to. I used to debate professors like Rob Coons. He's pretty smart. Josh Rasmussen. He's pretty smart. So James ended the Zoom thingy. So it closed and we couldn't continue. And so I sent a link to James so he can send it to Logan, essentially. Coherency of the Trinity. Am I a Jesus mythicist? No. I think Jesus likely existed. I think I've debated Steve McRae before. I think that has occurred. I think there was one on the controversy with Kyle or whatever. Lee, do I get tired of listening to the woeful Jesus or Christian evidences? Maybe. Tate McRae. Who's Tate McRae? Is that like a Steve McRae joke? I don't get it. Or is he just like... Yes, they do match my purse. They're amazing. Matches my Jimmy John's bike delivery job. Hello, Jaden. How's it going? It's been a while. Same Jaden that we had the conversation with on the channel a while ago. Oh no, the Jaden from the stream, Jaden. James should have sent you an email with the link in it. Hopefully. What type of quantum field? The necessary being type. That's the type. Do you think one day I get the same size? That did not work as much. That did not work. That worked. There we go. That works.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
We'll say no. Every time someone asks, can you hear me? Like, nope.
So
Move source. All right.
let me see. So I think everyone on your channel got the opening statement, Tom. So if we can follow the same format, and I'll roughly try to keep up with time, if that's okay with you.
Yep, James rage quitted. That is correct. Okay. So I was supposed to do an opening or something.
Yeah, just about a 1 minute opening to your position, or just if you just want to skip that and go right into cross exam, we can do that.
Sure. I'd say Christianity is false. It doesn't make any successful novel predictions. There's no evidence to show that any of the spiritual, supernatural stuff has actually happened. All the times it's been attempted to be shown has been proven false. It makes no claims at a higher rate of success than random chance. Therefore, it's no different than leprechauns, magic pixies, Santa Claus, etc., etc. I do hear an echo, I think. A little bit. It's not too bad.
Let me try to remove my headphones from my camera and see if that helps.
It might be that it's not going through the headphones. Who knows? Can you still hear me? I can't hear you at all now. Oh, wait. Try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
And I don't know. Testing. I don't think I can hear the background noise anymore. All right. So you made two arguments. One was presup. The other was resurrection. Resurrection's the easier one, so we'll go with that. Testimony claims are not evidence of miracles, magic, mythical creatures, paranormal, or supernatural, UFOs. And so testimony claims in history do not count as evidence for a resurrection actually occurring. Because all of the things that were attested for can be better explained by things we actually have evidence for. So the visions of the risen Jesus, bereavement delusion, empty tomb, there wasn't one. The consensus view in history is that he was most likely buried in a mass grave like everybody else. Romans didn't give tombs. So all of those things can be fully explained by natural explanations that are already more prevalent and have an abundance of evidence for. So, for example, if you have a hoof print in the snow, you don't say it's evidence of unicorns. You say it's evidence of a horse because horses have evidence. There's lots of like, screeching, electric noise coming from your side. I think it's like feedback noise.
Okay. Is it good now?
No, still lots of feedback noise.
I'm not
Do you
sure.
have a microphone?
Yeah, the microphone is built into my camera.
All right. All right, I'll just try to keep going. So resurrection, testimonies and evidence of resurrection. This has already been solved in both the consensus of history and the consensus in law. In law, there have been many cases where people have tried to bring eyewitness testimonies to court cases of literal modern day eyewitness accounts of things. Has no precedent, doesn't count. So for miracles, magic, mythical creatures, paranormal, supernatural, UFOs, eyewitness testimony does not count as evidence. You would need an empirical evidence for it before the testimony could be used to justify it because of the biases inherent in eyewitness testimony. In history, Mike Licona, famous Christian expert on history, wrote in his paper on historians and miracle claims, the very first sentence, I forget what it was because I haven't quoted this in a long time, but it's something like historians hold to it that history cannot justify the new existence of stuff that hasn't already been shown to exist empirically or something along those lines. And he gives the full quotes from the other authors. So testimony of the Bible is not in any case evidence of miracles, magic, mythical creatures, paranormal, supernatural, UFOs. Next, you mentioned precept. Precept, God is the preconditions of intelligibility, blah, blah, blah. God doesn't work as the preconditions of intelligibility. It objectively fails. It's self-defeating to say that I imagine there is a thing that creates an intelligible universe, therefore the universe is intelligible. I could just make up an ad hoc law of physics and says the intelligibility law, and this law forces the universe to be intelligible. Problem solved. And that would be an equivalent solution to what you're doing with God, asserting that it is a solution by fiat. And so any objection you could make to that law and say, well, why is that law the way it is? So I'd ask a mirrored question, why is God the way he is? You'd say, it's necessary. I'd say, it's necessary, problem solved. So precept objectively fails because it's essentially just labeling big problems in philosophy that haven't been solved by any worldview, saying they've solved it when they haven't. There's no solution provided. You can try to publish papers on it. You'll fail every time because precept doesn't solve any of these problems. And then says, because your worldview can't solve them, yours doesn't count as knowledge. They're conflating knowledge and truth. Truth can remain the same even if knowledge changes all the time. Even if you have no knowledge, truth is still the same. So there is no relation to the tentativeness of knowledge and the absoluteness of truth. Those are two unrelated things. Truth is correspondence to reality. Knowledge is whether or not we have a justification to believe things about reality. Totally unrelated. So even if we said we had no knowledge, that wouldn't affect the uniformity of nature or anything. Completely unrelated. Anything
Is
over
that
there
the
you
end
wanted to? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, is that the end of your opening?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just gonna hit the timer here and just do cross-sex. We'll throw some. I'll ask you questions, and you can answer for maybe keep it to 1 minute, and then we'll exchange after 5 minutes is up. Does that sound good to you?
Sure, give it a shot.
All right. Let's start a little bit more foundationally here, so I can understand where you're coming from. What is your definition of atheism?
There's lots of different versions of atheism. Atheism is just not believing in a God or rejecting a belief in God.
Would that be your position?
My position is more nuanced. I include in the definition that there is no evidence of God.
Okay. So under that definition of atheism, couldn't a fideistic Christian, one who doesn't believe there's reasons or arguments for God, fit under that definition?
Sure, they would be an epistemic atheist.
Yeah. So real under your definition. So just so I'm clear, under your definition of atheism, Christians or other religious groups that believe in God, who just don't believe there's any epistemic reasons or arguments for God, would fit under your definition of atheism.
It'd be an epistemic atheist. So in philosophy, you can have subsets of ideologies. Like an ontological atheist would be someone who believes there is no God. An epistemic atheist would be there's no evidence of a God. A methodological atheist would be someone who adopts atheism for the purpose of some methodology. Those are very consistent things that are applied in many different variations. So yes, that's perfectly fine. There's no contradiction there.
It would seem to be so, at least to me. Maybe you can walk me through it a little bit. And
so a
please,
methodological atheist is someone who adopts atheism for the sake of doing a methodology. You can believe anything and be a methodological atheist. So you could believe in, I don't know, a million Hindu gods and still be a methodological atheist. The prefix, the methodology or epistemology or ontology, determines the context in which you are the second word. So if you're an epistemic atheist, that means there's no evidence of anything for God. You can still believe in it, guys. I believe in unicorns, but there's no evidence of unicorns. That's perfectly fine. You'd be an epistemic a-unicornist. There's no contradiction there. It would only be a contradiction if you were an ontological atheist and a deist. That would be a contradiction, but that's not coherent in what my position is, because my position is the epistemic version, which only has to do with the evidence. So since my definition entails there is no evidence of a God, it's an epistemic atheism. So even if you're an ontological deist, that wouldn't be a contradiction with being an epistemic atheist.
So just to go off of that, so is the statement there is no evidence for the existence of God? Are you saying that is that a subjectively true claim, or is that an objectively true claim?
Subjectively true, because it's a position of an individual. An individual is an epistemic atheist, and so they, as far as they know, don't have any evidence.
So
if you're a Republican, that's a subjectively true statement.
So if you're saying that it is subjectively true that there is no evidence for God, then why are we having this discussion about subjectives versus objectives? I just want you to clear that up a little bit for me.
Because you asked about the label atheism. If a person labels themselves something, like a person labels themselves a Republican, and then they give a definition, a Republican is X, Y, and Z, and they are those things, that is them subjectively saying they meet their criteria of being Republican. You asked, how do I define atheism? Lack of evidence of God. I believe there is no evidence of God. Therefore, I am that category of atheist. Just like I assume you are a Republican, you are the category of Republican. Your political or ideological affiliations are subjective. They are a thing, a part of you. They're not like, it's not objectively true that Republicanism is true. Like, no, it's a label that you adopt because you fit the definition of that label. Now, I think objectively, all of the evidence and arguments presented by theists fail. I think that is true, but that is not the same as the definition of atheism, which is what you initially asked about. So subjectively, I'm an atheist because I'm a subject, just like subjectively, I'm center left. Objectively, I believe it's the case that all of the arguments fail. But your first
Okay,
question was
okay.
about the label.
Thank you for that clarification. My time for cross-exam is up. If you want to go ahead and launch in with yours, go right ahead.
Okay. Why do you think presup for God solves any of the problems that you list that you think naturalism doesn't solve?
Could you list a specific one? Are you just talking
Uniformity
about
of
one
nature.
So the uniformity of nature, like the problem of induction?
Sure. Those are two different problems, but yes.
Yeah, just uniformity in nature, problem of induction. Yeah, I would say that Christianity solves that problem because under my perspective, God orders, creates, sustains all things. So it does make sense under my perspective for the future to be like the past. And I do not find there to be internal contradictions within the main points of contention within the Christian worldview. So that would be at least where I would point to, as I mentioned in my opening statement, the impossibility of the contrary. And we'd have to take it on a
that part
case by
separate.
case
How do you
basis.
think that solves the problem of induction? So like God commands or designs the universe to be way X, and he has done that every day in the past. Why will he continue to do that in the future? How does the fact that he's done that in the past give evidence that he will continue to do that in the future?
Well, because we have a revelation from God that says that God does not change.
Is that in the past? Is that in the past?
The revelation?
Yeah, did that happen in the past?
It was actualized in our time in the past, but God acts from eternity.
So it was in the past. So you're using the past to justify your beliefs about the future. You're using induction to justify induction.
No, because God is setting these orders from eternity, and they were only actualized for us, but we know from his revelation, which he is in his perspective, in his purview, has revealed on his timetable in his time.
Okay,
for
but
us
you aren't in eternity. You only have access to regular eternity. So all of these things you're saying are things you got from the past.
Well, all these things that I'm saying are got from a revelation that is consistent with an eternal God.
You got all of this information in a timeline, and all of it was in the past of the timeline.
Is that a question?
Yes. All of these things you're mentioning, like you read it in the Bible, you got knowledge from God from reading the Bible, whatever. You got all of this from the past. Your past experience.
I'm sorry. Can you at least list out for me, because I'm trying to follow you here a little bit, but I'm struggling to see.
Do you exist in eternity? No. You exist in the present moment, and you have a past, and you have no future self.
Yeah.
Right? You exist on a timeline like normal people, not like God. So all of the information you just listed, the things that you believe about the Bible, about God, you got those from your past experience. Those are beliefs that came about from your past experience. So you're using the past induction to justify induction.
I would say that I could fit. So now I'm understanding your point a little bit better now. I would say that I am using the principle of induction to ground the fact that it is, because it is consistent within my worldview, because God creates induction. Whether or not I know that from past personal experiences, I'm using induction to come up with this argument. I would argue from my perspective that God is the foundation of induction. And I would be curious to know, and I know I'm not asking questions, how on naturalism
go ahead.
Induction would come up, but we can save that. We got about a minute left in this process.
So in your example, what you're doing is you're asserting that there is this thing that exists. Oh, I can close my Zoom. I don't need that up anymore. There's this thing that exists that causes things to continue to be the way they are. So suppose we're talking to David Hume, who created the law, the problem of induction, I said, oh, well, the way things continue to be the way they are is because there's this undiscovered law that just makes them be the way that they are. He would say, okay, but that doesn't solve the problem. That's literally irrelevant. We don't care if there is actually a thing to do that. That's not the point of the problem. And so do you think that solves the problem? If I just say there is an undiscovered law that just makes things the way that they are, do you think that solves the problem of induction?
No, because induction seems to arise, at least in reasoning and how we see it in nature. It seems to arise from just more than natural processes, does it not?
Yeah, it
Oh,
has
I know. I'm
nothing to
not
do
asking
with.
questions,
No, no,
but
it's fine. I don't care about that. So it has nothing to do with natural processes. Induction is seeing a pattern and having the pattern continue. It doesn't matter if it's material geese or supernatural ghosts. It's just there's a pattern, pattern continues. That's all induction is. It makes no reference to naturalism. The question was, does positing that there is some undiscovered law that grounds all the universe, that controls everything and forces things to continue the pattern, solve the problem of induction?
yes, but I don't know of any theory that has been discovered along those lines.
Well, the
And
question wasn't if there was a theory. The question was, would it solve the problem of induction if such a thing existed?
would a theory this magical or this supposed
Undiscovered
theory
law of physics.
solve the so what would you are you asking would that undiscovered law of physics that we would discover at some point down the line solve the problem of induction? Is that your question?
As you see it. So, as you see the problem of induction, if I posited or discovered some law of physics that just forces things to continue to be the way they are, would that solve the problem of induction in the way that you understand the problem?
Yes, it would. And I then, but that just backs the court. That's just backing up the question. Another one. Then the question would arise: well, what provides for this universal law or principle, and what would that be? And I would say that the the best explanation for me would just be God.
Right. So you're going too many steps down the road here. So now give you a short version that doesn't solve the problem of induction. That doesn't even address the problem of induction. It's a completely different thing. So it's just a misunderstanding. Many, not just you, many precepts and many specifically precepts have about the problem of induction that they think that just positing something that will exist prior to everything and just forces it to continue solves. It does not have anything to do with the problem of induction. It doesn't solve it at all. Completely irrelevant. But let's go with this and say, let's suppose hypothetically it did. So you say you'd go kicking the can down the road. What would be the next step? I would ask the same question about God. What makes, or maybe I should let you go first. So I think there's a law of physics that governs everything and causes the uniformity of nature and induction to continue to go in the same way it does. And your objection would be what?
My objection would be what is the grounding of that law? Just positing that there's going to be another law that defines that. That, in my mind, raises just another question. Well, okay, if this law governs this observation which we are making in nature about induction, then where does that law emerge from? That would be the question that I would wonder about and ask. And maybe
So I would just say it's the fundamental nature of reality.
okay. So maybe we can just shift slightly again so I can just kind of get to different things here because I do have an event and an assignment that I need to do a little bit later on this evening. So just launching into another 5 minutes a piece, and then we can go to open discussion just a little bit. But on your worldview, what does it mean for something to be morally wrong?
Depends. Like, are you asking for the definition of what I think morality is, or are you asking the correspondence of what I think morality corresponds to?
We will just go with the question of what morality is. What is morality on your worldview?
Well, so I think morality is an undiscovered law of physics.
Okay, so would you say that that would be a form of pantheism then?
No.
No.
Pantheism is the view that God is a part of the world, but encompasses more. No, I don't think there is a God.
Okay, so allow me to then ask this question. Do you agree with this statement you made in an interview a few weeks ago? Well, it may have been a few months ago. Quote, morality is a description of the best of all possible worlds. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Okay, then allow me to follow that up with this. Who defines the best of all possible world, or what defines, from your perspective, the best of all possible worlds?
Best is a word that describes the maximization of some property. The property in this case is the property of morality.
Okay.
So
What
best of all
is
possible worlds is a label that I'm using to describe a morally perfect world.
what would a morally perfect world be in your worldview?
A world where there is no involuntary imposition of will, or a world where it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. For example, just to come up with one, isn't a parent preventing their child from doing something harmful to themselves? Is that an immoral action?
Yes, because it would be unnecessary if the world were not constrained in such a way. So, for example, let's say the child's running towards the street and the parent grabs them and stops them or whatever. The reason that grabbing them and stopping them is justified is because if they run into the street, they're going to get hit by a car. And so the imposition of grabbing them is a lesser imposition than what would happen if they got hit by the car. Now, if physics were such that being run over by a car couldn't affect you, like if they had could just turn ethereal or something. So if it was impossible to force anyone to do anything they didn't consent to doing, such as being hit by a car, then there would be no justification for grabbing the child and stopping them from running into the street. That would simply be child abuse. So yes, it is immoral if we were in the best of all possible worlds. Since we aren't, it's a justified immoral action.
Okay. So from your perspective, where does this obligation to move towards the best of all possible worlds arise from?
There is no obligation. My model doesn't have obligations or oughts in that sense. Morality is a thing that exists, and so since it exists, what it corresponds to is a truth statement. You don't need oughts in that. Oughts are hypothetical imperatives that we impose on the truth statements.
So just to go back to something I had mentioned in my opening statement, it's a little cheeky, but just to give us a case example out there. From your perspective, why is it better for us to love our neighbor than to eat our neighbor?
Well, if
Last
the
question.
neighbor doesn't consent, then that would be a involuntary imposition of consent, and that's why it would be better to not eat them.
So can you repeat that last part? I didn't get that part.
Okay, so my definition of morality is any involuntary imposition of will is immoral. So it's forcing people to do things they don't consent to doing. So if the neighbor doesn't want to be eaten and you eat them, that would be an involuntary imposition of will, which would be immoral.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, well, why would that? Because just a moment ago, and when we were talking about preventing children, and this will be my last question before I hand it back off to you, in our study about why it's better to discipline their children, isn't that still, what if in the case of the neighbor or a great majority of people that have practiced in the past cannibalism, would you go with sort of I'm trying to just figure out what you are meaning in this statement and sort of coinciding in your answer over here with the eating your neighbor portion with also the discipline portion from the parenting to children.
I don't see a connection between the two. So in the case of disciplining a child, it's still immoral. It's still immoral to stop the child from running into the street, but it's a justified immoral action. So you do one bad thing to prevent a greater bad thing. Eating your neighbor would just be a bad thing. There isn't like, maybe you could make it a hypothetical that like eating your neighbor will save the lives of 1 million people or something. Therefore, you eat your neighbor. In that case, maybe eating your neighbor would be a justified immoral action. It'd still be immoral. They're still both immoral because that bad thing saved more lives or something. But either way, they're both bad. They're both immoral, and they wouldn't exist in the best of all possible worlds.
I'll hand it back off to you. I have another question, but I'll hand it back off to you for whatever time you want.
Sure. So let's see, what were we going for? My question was, you think that positing some guiding force that exists eternally as the fundamental nature of reality solves the problem of induction? And my response was, so I think it's the fundamental nature of reality. And so I just gave you a naturalist hypothesis that can account for the uniformity of nature. That would seem to disprove your claim that it requires a God to be the preconditions for the uniformity of nature.
Is that a question?
Yes. So Your argument was God is the preconditions for intelligibility, including uniformity of nature. This argument seems wrong if you admit that a solution to induction of the uniformity of nature, that all you need for a solution is that there is some outside law that forces it to be the way it is forever or whatever. I provided a naturalistic example of that. Doesn't that debunk your argument that God is the necessary precondition for at least this one case, uniformity induction?
Well, again, as I stated when you had asked me a similar question in our last round of rebuttals, that would just be backing the question up. I would still relate it, whatever the new natural law is, to induction. But the main problem I'm having here, so you're not saying that this law that you have, this hypothetical law that you made, is in fact hypothetical.
What?
It's not been discovered yet, correct?
It doesn't need to be. So for a precondition for intelligibility, all I need to show is here is a way the world could be that would produce intelligibility. And that would, even if whether or not we have evidence doesn't make a difference, because here is a way the world could be without God that produces intelligibility, disproves your claim that God is the necessary or the only way to produce intelligibility. So I don't actually need to provide evidence for it. All I need to do is show here is an example of a possible world that produces intelligibility without God. And so I don't know how you said you're going to go back to induction. If there is an actual law that actually exists, induction is an epistemic thing. It's how we learn. We reference the past to infer about the future. It doesn't apply to things that exist. If there's actually a law that actually exists that permeates time and eternity or whatever, and forces things like logic and induction to work the same throughout all time, you can't. I'm not sure how you think you're going to apply induction to that.
Is okay. Well, I would. Are you asking for me to give an explanation, or do you want to change the topic, or do you want to keep going on this? I'm just kind of trying to figure out where we're headed here.
Yeah. So I'm saying that I can refute your entire main argument by providing a naturalist example that accounts for the intelligibility of nature, which you said was impossible, which would then debunk your whole first argument. And so I'm going to show that any kind of counter argument you have against this is going to lead to absurdity or contradiction. And so it will be self-defeating, thus justifying that this is a coherent position.
Okay, so I thank you for giving me that at least. And this may be a little mixing here, but aren't we assuming, for example, the next piece of my argument, in order to even have the discussion that we're currently having about induction, which would be absolute laws of logic? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you're accusing me of implying at least a contradiction within my argument, correct?
Well, I'm saying your argument is wrong. I wouldn't say it's a contradiction.
So you would say that it's the law of the excluded middle. I'm either A or not A. I'm either right or wrong, and there's no in between on my argument, correct?
Sort of.
Okay, sort of. So wouldn't we then be assuming universal, absolute laws of logic, or maybe not absolute, depending on whatever you define it as is your perspective? So I think we're borrowing a little bit of baggage that we haven't yet covered to talk about the principle of induction. And before we come back around to the principle of induction, I would say that we may need to maybe talk about the other.
Sure. So how do you think God grounds the laws of logic?
Because God is logical. And I would say that the laws of logic are existent outside of the universe, that there are no contradictions within God's character.
Pause for 1 second. When you say God is logical, does that mean that logic exists and then God obeys the laws of logic?
No, it is that logic is something that flows forth from God's nature. He is consistent as the.
So logic is something that comes from the nature of some entity.
Yes, that would be my argument as well.
So I could posit the same thing and say there is a fundamental law of nature, that logic flows from this fundamental law of nature.
Okay, and how would you arrive at that conclusion?
How would I arrive at that conclusion? Well, again, I don't need to use evidence to try and justify it. It just needs to be coherent or possible. So, like an
Well,
example,
but
would be a
I would
platonic
need to
object.
know. I would need to know the the conditions of this law in order to properly say, yes, this coherently and completely accounts for all of the laws of logic and everything along those lines.
I don't know what
And
that means. So, like, how would you answer for God if I was to ask you the same question for God?
so my question to you, if I'm, because I'm trying to follow our discussion a little bit here. I'm also a little distracted by the side chat. Is there a way I can get to go full screen? Okay, there we go. That's full screen. Okay, that's
Okay.
better. So what did you ask me again? One more time.
So, you raised an objection saying something like you would need to know how this law operates to know it justifies the laws of logic or something.
Yeah.
And I don't really know
You
what
would
that
need
means.
to-
So I asked,
yeah.
how would you answer if I asked you the same question about God? How would you answer that about God?
Yeah. So for example, as we have the God that I'm defending, the triune God, the one that's described in Scripture, at least in the Gospel accounts, as we have them in the and other portions of the Bible in the New Testament. But like for example, I could take the Christian God as a case study. Like an example of an objection would be, okay, well, the Trinity doesn't make sense, and therefore God is incoherent and can't make sense of the laws of logic. And that would sort of be one of the issues or objections that I would be willing to work with someone, because someone would be trying to posit, well, your God is self-contradictory and arbitrary, and you need to work this out you need to make sense of this in order for the laws of logic to make sense under your worldview. Does that help you at all with
Well, that
what
would just
might
mean anything that doesn't have a logical contradiction could ground logic.
okay? And without knowing the special specificities of this hypothetical law that you've provided, I don't know, so I can't really rule on that. Could you pick maybe another example of from another worldview or something that we could talk about?
Well, the law doesn't have any self-contradictions. It's just an object that grounds logic. So this exists in many different models of philosophy, like Platonic objects that ground logic in Plato's model. So there's an object which is the ground of all logic, and it permeates the universe, and it sustains why things are logical, essentially. And you can do this both with a Platonic object or an actual law of physics that is the logical law of physics or whatever, essentially, and that could work just fine, and there's no logical contradiction there.
So are you saying then that this grounding, are you positing that this grounding of the laws of logic would you say that it is this hypothetical one that we were discussing, is it natural? Is it material? Is it immaterial?
Well, my view would be natural material. The Platonic objects are immaterial. I don't think they would fit into the natural realm. Don't really know. But yeah, my view is natural material.
Okay. So if I may ask this question, then how exactly, from your perspective, do laws of logic arise from nature? Or how would they?
So laws of physics govern how everything works. So there's a law of physics that causes everything to operate in such a way that it is described by the law of identity or whatever. And so the law of physics, which permeates the universe, causes everything to have properties which are identical to themselves.
Did the laws of physics cause the universe to begin, from your
Sure.
perspective?
Sure.
How?
How? The Big Bang?
Well, yes, the Big Bang is there, but my question is I'm asking you who banged it or what banged it? What started this?
For the quantum fields, there's something called the Casimir effect. The Casimir effect showed that virtual particles exist with an empirical result, and the virtual particles can exist in what virtual particles particles that are both positive and negative separate, and then they recollide and boom, blow up. And these can happen at different size scales. And so the Big Bang essentially is just a really, really big Casimir effect where the particles and antiparticles pop into existence and separate, which is caused by fluctuations in quantum fields.
So, how exactly did all of these particles come into being or existence from your perspective? that
Quantum
caused the Big
fields
Bang.
fluctuate, which causes the particles and antiparticles to come into existence.
Well, I'm not asking you to restate your answer. I'm asking you to provide a reason or how those particles came into existence.
I don't know what you're asking. Like literally, we've proven this works in a lab. Quantum fields fluctuate. It causes particles and antiparticles to separate. So the Big Bang is literally just there was a quantum field. It fluctuated. The fluctuations, which are like waves, cause a divot to go up and a divot to go down like a big wave. And when those separate, that's a particle. So the quantum field has waves. The waves separate. That creates particles and fields. So space and time and energy and matter from our universe were created in a massive fluctuation of a quantum field.
Okay, so your statement was we've been able to test this in a lab and do this.
It's called the
How
Casimir effect. You can Google it. It's very popular.
well, I understand that I can Google it and find it. I'm wondering how all of these particles came into existence. Are you positing that the universe came into existence from something as opposed to coming into existence from nothing?
Yes, yes. So quantum fields exist outside of the universe. They predate the universe, and the universe comes from quantum fields.
So are you saying quantum fields are eternal?
Yes,
They've existed from eternity.
yes. Outside of space and time.
Okay. So I know I'm kind of getting off of where we originally started from with Tag and with the resurrection of Jesus, but I'm enjoying where this conversation is going. So these quantum fields that brought in and caused the Big Bang, these seem to be rather, well, as I would pose it originally, what I'm kind of getting at now is a cosmological or teleological understanding of these quantum fields and how so you're saying these did not come into the existence, but they were eternally existent, and they brought about everything that we currently have as it is. Does this seem like a finely tuned process to you?
Depends on what you define as finely tuned. Like it doesn't really make like in physics, it's defined as simply a system that is constrained by a certain set of laws, which is sure.
Okay, so all right. Well, I just wanted to ask that question. So let me see. So what do you want to do here, TJump? I mean, we got some time here. Where do we want to go? Do we want to?
Well, I want to continue down my line of reasoning to show that I can show that naturalism is a better account for the preconditions of intelligibility of the gut. That would defeat all precept, presumably. So that seems like a good argument.
So how about, okay, so what if you do 5 minutes, I'll do 5 minutes, and then we go ahead and end the stream? Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Okay. You go ahead with your 5 minutes, sir.
So intelligibility is essentially the ability for us to understand things, and that can be accounted for by essentially a law of physics that exists that causes the universe to be a certain way, based the laws of logic, uniformity of nature, which is next required, but let's just for the sake of argument, let's say it is uniformity of nature, and whatever other things you need can be perfectly accounted for in a natural universe where there is laws that are fundamental to reality that cause the universe to be this way with no need for a god.
All right. Okay, and I will just conclude by saying I wish that this had ended up working out a little bit better than what it did. Thanks for everybody that was watching and shifting over with the streams and everything. Originally, when I had opened my argument, I posited the transcendental argument for God and also evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. We didn't really, for time, because of time constraints, because of the stream, we weren't able to touch everything. But so far, my opponent has posited the idea that there are perfectly natural explanations that could possibly exist for the 3 points that I had cited. God is the precondition for moral absolutes and obligations, the uniformity of nature, universal laws of logic. And I would argue that those points that he brought up along the naturalistic lines are not found yet, and I don't think that they will be. But even if they are, that I would say that would just back the question up further. And again, I will just cite my opponent here. Truth and knowledge is in the bottom-up world are always tentative, defeasible, never absolute, and always open to revision. And from that perspective, I would just ask, and all those listening going forward, are moral absolutes, are eating your neighbor, things like that, or not eating your neighbor, uniformity, nature, laws of logic, are those always subject to change? Could those change in the conversation that we've had so far? I'd say not, but we don't have super much time to go to TJump. Thanks for inviting me on the stream. Appreciate you doing that. And yeah, you got
Sure.
any final
One
thoughts you
thing
want to
that I
share?
would.
Go ahead, man.
Well, yeah. So there's one thing that the other precepts are probably going to get very angry with you about. So just to help you with your
Fine.
precept, precept God is necessary. He's necessarily the only way to ground knowledge. So if I can even give you a model, like just think of one, that would prove God isn't necessary anymore. Because that if there's any alternative, whether it's discovered or not, doesn't make a difference to the precept argument. What matters is it's not even possible. There's got to be a contradiction in it before it even exists. So even if you can even think of one, precept is debunked. So the precepts are going to be very angry with you if you grant that it just hasn't been discovered yet, because you have to show that it can't even exist in imagination. It has to have a contradiction. That would just be my advice for you to work on your precept.
Yeah, I was trying to. I don't exactly. This is just a little behind the scenes, so we're going to talk about this. But precept is actually something that I'm just getting used to. New. I wanted to try it out and see how it went, and I was trying to revise it in some ways to make it a little more defensible. But yeah,
Good luck.
yeah. Well, I know it's a tough line of logic to go with, but yeah. And in the future, if we want to get on again, maybe talk a little bit more from a traditional classical apologetic perspective about the resurrection of Jesus or something, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm definitely open to have another conversation
man.
with you.
Yeah. And I think you know a friend of mine, Hunter Bissett, from I think he's over at NC State right now, and I know that I think you invited him on the channel before and stuff, and he was saying before this, he was like, "Man, precept is not a good idea. Don't do it." And I was like, "I'm gonna try it, man. I'm gonna try it, and we're gonna see if it works." But yeah, I'd still wonder on some points, but yeah, we won't bring those up right now. But yeah, man, thanks for doing this, and love to get on and chat again sometime. All right.
Yeah, sure. Let's set up another one with modern day debate. We can do like the resurrection or something.
Yeah. Blessings to you, man. And just to close our time together, or at least I'll hop off the stream and you can keep doing whatever you want to do. But just want to say that, throw out maybe Pascal's wager a little bit, but just so you know that God loves you. He died for your sins. He sent his son to die for you. And he died for me. He healed me. I used to be paralyzed and in a wheelchair. God loves you. And if you repent and believe the gospel, you'll be saved for all of eternity. That may be cheesy, maybe cheeky. I'm just throwing it out there for you because as a good Christian, that's what I'm supposed to do. All right, man.
Sugar babies is what cured me from my depression. So,
well, there's still time, brother. All right. You have a good rest of your day. All right.
You too. Peace out.
Peace out.
All right. Yeah, Pascal's wager. Okay, then. I guess that's it for the stream. I'm going to go eat ice cream. That's right. Sugar babies. That's right. Hot blondes. Yep. Instagram model saved lives. That's right. That's right. Advocacy for the Instagram model church, the Church of Instagram Models. After show. Yeah, I don't think he was lying about the wheelchair part, though I don't think his curing was likely from God. It was probably spontaneous remission, most likely, which does happen. Call my homies up. I don't have homies. I have no friends. Only people I want to spend time with is Instagram models. Church of OnlyFans. Yes. Yes, we'll start the Church of OnlyFans. Yeah, I don't think Moses existed. Moses probably didn't exist. TJump quantum fields created everything. Yes. prove quantum particles have no origin or creator. Their quantum fields are the origin of particles. The particles come from the fields. They do have an origin. What? Prove quantum. I just did your question, Steve. Blessed is the holy chair, the sugar babies, and the objective morality. Am I going live again? I don't think I have any plans to go live. Find me people to debate. Oh, there was somebody said something about a guy. Was it Winston's mom? He suggested somebody. I saw a comment somewhere about that. And you didn't hear back and you wanted me to message him or something. Should have done Q&A. Like, sure, we can do Q&A. Send me questions. I'll answer them, and I'll be a precept, and I'll answer them from the precept perspective as well. I'll answer them from both perspectives. TJump needs to debate Jesus. I would be like, so that whole drowning babies thing, like that, it's actually, there's a good point there. If I actually got to debate Jesus, what would I ask? I would ask this. So, you know, that time when God drowned all the babies, are you okay with that? Did you condone this? Did you think it was a good idea that your sky daddy drowned babies? I would ask him that. That is what I would ask Jesus if I could debate Jesus. Decimate means to remove 10% of. So if God decimated me, I would lose 20 pounds. I would be okay with this. What are you talking about? Fluctuations in quantum fields create quantum particles. It's literally, I mean, the fields don't technically. It's the fluctuations in the fields that creates them. What's my opinion on the problem of evil? God murdered, drowned babies. Therefore, evil bad. Yeah, all-powerful God probably wouldn't have created evil. How much did the couch cost? I think this one was like $300. The last one I got was $800. It was like, this one was experimental material. It's like suede. And so it's not like a standard material that comes on the chair or used to come on the chair. I think they've been discontinued. So I got this one for half off or whatever. And I got it at an outlet, Lazy Boy outlet, Slumberland outlet or whatever. So it was already cheaper. Let's see. I am down to 215. So from last summer, I was at 250. So I'm down 35 pounds. I need to do another 35. I was going to go biking today, but it's raining outside right now. When did you get Spider-Man Tobey Maguire haircut? Looks good. I got the nails too. I gotta pick up those ladies. That's the goal. That's the goal. I still haven't found a successful way to do that yet, like consistently. Sucks. Was Jesus illiterate? Can God be all-knowing and not know how to read and write? That's funny. Okay, Steve, if you want to set up a real debate, go ahead. Set them up. So I would be happy to debate them on whatever. I don't know what topic would you want me to debate them on? Philosophy of religion. I don't know specifically what part of philosophy of religion you would want to debate. My focus is apologetics and the arguments for God. Like, I don't know that much about the history of the Christian faith or whatever. Yes, sugar babies like my haircut. That is correct. I did bike some earlier today. I think I got 12 miles in. So doing Jimmy John's bike delivery, got 12 miles in. Do you plan to do a live Sunday show? This Sunday I think is probably going to be just a repeat, an old video. I think that Randolph said he couldn't do the regular Sunday show because he had some family something or another, and so he's going to postpone it a week. Pronouns. How can quantum fields take up space and actually create space at the same time? They don't. Quantum fields, space-time is a specific kind of a field. Quantum fields exist as a different field. They don't take up space. Did quantum fields exist before space-time? Yes, Jeremy, they did. Space and time are fields that were created at the Big Bang, as far as we know. And so they were created by quantum fields, which is a different field altogether. So the space-time field was created by quantum fields, which are different fields. Your reliance on quantum mechanics is only an evasive maneuver from real argumentation. That is literally not how that works. So if you're talking about the fundamental nature of reality, a thing that has evidence, like quantum fields, is a better explanation than a thing that does not have evidence, like gods. Quantum fields can exist in space, but they are not space. There are quantum fields outside of space-time. You can literally find that. That is a thing in physics. It's very easy to find that. Google emergent space-time. Emergent space-time. Quantum fields exist outside of space. Doesn't mean they all do. How are you doing, Tom? Also, do you lift weights? I used to lift weights. I'm doing okay. I'm not doing great. I'm doing okay. What I need is a way to meet more super cute Instagram models. I need to find like a job or hobby where I can meet 18 to 20-year-old Instagram models. That's what I really need in life. What should we be relying on? Science. Period. That is so true, Jerry. If you repeat Sunday shows, I can't tell a difference because they are similar. Yep, they are pretty much identical. That's why I can get away with it. Thoughts on Ayn Rand? I don't really have many thoughts on her. Do you skip leg days? I do bike delivery for Jimmy John's. I bike 20 to 40 miles every day. Every day is my leg day. TJump, become a fitness instructor. That could work as a way to meet like 18 to 22-year-olds, maybe. Belief in God does have a warrant to believe if in nothing. What? That's not a coherent sentence. No, I am not limiting existence to only material things. My argument applies to all things, both material and immaterial. Anyone in the world who would Donald Trump give me the most views, 100%. If I could debate anyone in the world, Donald Trump. Like for intellectual content, maybe William Lane Craig or something, but Donald Trump. Yes, 18. I think the woman who I dated, who I enjoyed the most being with the most, was 18. Rock around a few stores for a while. Yeah, the whole I'm not a socialite like that, and my type is usually not at stores because my type is tens, exclusively tens. It's hard to find them. A yoga instructor. I mean, like I could try. I think you have to actually be flexible to be a yoga instructor. How old was I? I was 32. See you, Dave. Walmart or church? Don't know how you got Walmart out of there. Like Walmart. How old am I? I am 35. What's better, 110 or 2 5s? I'm not attracted to anyone who's below a 10. So like dating someone who's below a 10 would be like dating Antangelo to me. Have you seen the show Vikings? Tons of gorgeous blondes. Yes. there was, I think there was like there's one girl in Vikings I really liked. She was the something something Nelson, Anne Marie Nelson, Marie something Nelson. She was the blonde that was taken over to be with the Suns. How do you justify your belief that God doesn't exist in my ear? Your ear is too hairy. There is not enough room for God to exist there. No, quantum fields are not electromagnetic field. Electromagnetic fields are a different field. Like electromagnetic fields could be considered like one kind of quantum field. Immaterial and intangible. So Steve asks, please clarify your understanding of immaterial and intangible. Immaterial and intangible could be other ontologies that are not physical. So non-material, non-energy based. That could be other things that could exist. And so the supernatural, magic, platonic objects, those could all be ontologies of things that exist in a non-physical way. Masked Bandit, the problem isn't the location. I'm in a very good location to meet them. The problem is I don't like talking to people. So like going up and talking to them is not a thing I can do. The best person I've debated online, maybe Rob Coons. Who do I consider the best person I've debated online? Probably Rob Coons. Do you believe that society is actually devolving intellectually? No. Like if you speak to an average human today, and then you go back 200 years and speak to an average human, they are not as dumb because education. Like literally 200 years ago, the literacy rate was like 16%. It's like, no, we're not devolving. No. Do a meet and greet. Are you going to come to Minnesota? How do you know outside entities do not influence quantum fields? It's logically possible, but you would ask the same question. How do you know outside entities don't affect God? And you would just say, oh, by definition, God can't be affected. Like you can just say the same thing. By definition, quantum fields are fundamental, so they can't be affected. I have a lot of haters in my fan club. That is totally fine. Haters send super chats too. It's better than crappy Florida. Florida actually wasn't that bad. I went to Miami. That's right. Intelligence stays the same about from when you're born to when you die. So intelligence is going to be the same. The difference is going to be the level of education. So intellectual regression would be a lower level of education. The problem is I'm not a very social person. So even if I was around them, unless they talk to me, I'd probably never talk to them. So the problem is I need friends to introduce me. That's the problem, Ronald. I need to be introduced. A community or friend group or something that can introduce me. That is the only way it would actually work, because I'm not going to ever like go up and talk to them. It's just not a thing for me. Too introverted. Jeremy Nolan, are the quantum fields you are referring to have always existed and nothing created them? Yes. Dumb. I don't care. That doesn't help me because I have a social impairment and I hate talking to people. And so I need someone to help me do that. So it doesn't help. Am I a Dune fan? It was okay. The new Dune movies were okay. I didn't read the books. I didn't like the old Dune movies because you literally just couldn't see through the thing. I've been to tons of D&D groups and game nights. They're all too old for me. Like 18 to 22. 18, 22. Meetups, D&D groups are all like 30. Game nights are like 28. Don't even know what that word means, Jerry. I don't know what that word means. Sapiosexual? I don't know what that means. Oh, people who are attracted to intelligence? Is that what it is? Yeah, I have a hard enough time just finding people I'm attracted to. I don't really care what they like. Yes, that is correct, Simbi. Get a gig at a college. That's why I started working at Jimmy John's at Dinkytown. That's exactly what I did. Hasn't worked out great because I still don't have any chance to talk to him. Why is this more comfortable for me? Because I don't care. Genuinely do not care when I'm online. When I'm talking to women who are my type, I genuinely care so much that it hurts. Be the Kawats Herdik. I don't know what that word means. Those words are too big for me. I have not tried my ideology. Like just go into my YouTube channel and look up the professors I've tried it against. Rob Coons, Josh Rasmussen, Luke Barnes, the world's Hugh Ross, Jeff Zwirig. Like I've tried it against the world's leading experts in these fields. If you don't think those are real world valid opponents, then you crazy, bro. The top theist. Yes, this is live. Your mom is live. Well, the problem isn't like after the conversation started, it's easy. That part I can do pretty easily. The problem is starting the conversation, getting to know somebody. Getting to know someone I'm attracted to is not easy. A bud tender? A bartender, you mean? A bud tender? I don't know what a bud tender is. Bartender, like even in those situations, I don't know if it actually worked. Bartender might work. Maybe I've thought about that. No, so your brain has to actually develop to some degree before you know your intelligence. Do I now believe DNA is what? Is an actual code? So in my debate with what's his name, the definition of code that theists use is different than the definition of code that atheists use, which was explained in that debate. So the definition of code theists use, it is not, DNA is not that kind of a code. The definition of code like physicists use, it's perfectly fine to use it in that way. Just like information. Information, as used by Claude Shannon, DNA is information. Information is used by theists, it is not information, because information, they use it in a very different way. Selling pot over the counter, that could work. Example of my type, Rachel Brockman, Cicely Rose, Ivanita Lomeli, Clary Krimashi. Have I ever TJump pickup line? Have you ever heard about objective morality? Yes. It's like going to a bar and be like, hey, you want to talk about Hegel? It's great, great line. Great line. Hugh Ross is a physicist. He's not a theologian. He's a he's a theologian, but he's a physicist. AOC is not attractive. Yes, Jeremy, I have already started it. I already have the federal approval and everything. I just need to get money. If I get a lot of money, I can buy an apartment building. Darth is too afraid to debate me. He is too scared. That's right. She's not blonde. So Rachel Brockman is a brunette, but I don't care because she's a 10. Cicely Rose is a redhead, like one of the only attractive redheads I've ever seen. Sure. I'll take $2,000. Sure. Ox noise. Go ahead. Send PayPal me. I will mail it to you. Flowina Paradise. Does sound like a stripper name. Do not find attractive. Not even a little bit. Gotta have the money first, Ox Noise. Why do you have faith in nothing existing before quantum fields, but not God? Because quantum fields have evidence. God does not have evidence. Yep, she's Jen Selter, too old, not attracted, butt's too big. Don't like her face. Don't like her nose. Not attractive. Decent abs. What names? Both debaters would have to agree to be muted at times. Who is someone you really want to debate that you haven't gotten to debate? Donald Trump. William Lane Craig and Donald Trump would probably be the top two. Yes, I have extremely particular standards. Rachel Brockman, Cicely Rose, Evany Tilomeli, Clary Krimashi. That's my type. Learn CPR, become a lifeguard. I thought about doing that. That was the one I thought about. Coffee shop barista, bartender. Those are the things I've thought about. Job at life at Lululemon job. Why did my blondie dump me? I started dating a brunette, my 18-year-old brunette, and we're still dating. So she didn't. Be Larry off of SpongeBob? I don't even know what that means. Peter, the problem isn't the dating scene. The problem is that I hate talking to people. I need someone to socially introduce me. Sicily? I don't know how to spell Cicely Rose. Just Google Sicily. Does Cicely Rose? Sicily starts with an S. I need to lose another 30 pounds before I can become a lifeguard so I can get abs. Starts with an S. Sicily starts with an S. You can't build abs. You need to lose body weight. Everybody has abs. You just need to get a low enough body fat percentage. Thank you, Peter. You are my only hope. What is the most convincing argument I've ever heard? So the fine-tuning arguments for DNA prior to us knowing anything about DNA is a good argument. So like if we just discovered DNA, it looks like a code, you'd say it's a code. But then we discovered more. Would I debate Vosh again? Sure. Do you believe he's just a grifter? I don't know what that means. I don't know what you mean by a grifter. Do I live in Uptown or near Dinkytown? So I work in Dinkytown. I live in South Minneapolis. I work in Uptown. The Jimmy John's in both of those places. No, I'll never settle because I am not attracted to them. Can't date someone I'm not attracted to. Water equals H2O equals agua. Yes, that was funny. That was funny. Fosh did kind of get crushed in that debate. That was funny. I debated him, though. What's his name? Woodbury? I am in Hennepin County. Jimmy John's, which ones? I work at a lot of them. I work at Dinkytown, Uptown, Northeast. So Dinkytown, I work on Saturdays because I don't like doing Dinkytown all that much. It didn't work. Northeast, I do Mondays, Fridays. I'm doing East End and downtown tomorrow. And then I'm doing 9th Street on Thursday, 9th Street downtown on Thursday. I don't care. Like you can find my license plate on my Instagram. Does not bother me. I do not care. Yes, that is correct, Peter. Get rich, get tins. That's right. Have I tried psychedelics? Yes. Drugs don't do good things for me. I guess it's nice. I don't really know. Like I like the lakes and the biking around the lakes. That's what I like. I don't really know about the city itself. I think North Minneapolis is the only bad one. Do you ride a fixie or do you have gears? I have 3 fixies, 2 with gears. I do the fixies for work, and then I do a recumbent for fun. Do people recognize? Yes, I think 3 people have recognized me from my YouTube channel at Jimmy John's. 4 people. 1 was at Northeast. 2 were at Dinkytown. 1 was an employee from the store next door, the ice cream cookie store. What are they gonna do? Like say, what is your precondition for intelligibility? Throw a sandwich at them. I find all places boring. I've not found a fun place. Did they leave a nice tip? I don't think so. I don't think they have a setting for tips in shop. Three lakes. So I do Nokomis, Harriet, Calhoun, Lake of the Isles, and back. Those are the 3 I normally do. On my recumbent. These recumbents. Red recumbent. Do you vote? Nope. Would I vote for RFK? Who's RFK? I don't know who RFK is. RFK Jr.? Is that Kennedy? I don't know. Do you want to play in the rock band? Maybe that rock band could work. I mean, if I'm just not good at anything. Thank you for the super chat, Peter. Appreciate it. Yeah, the only person I think should be president is me. I would have recognized the name Kennedy, but RFK, I was thinking like JFK. Like that doesn't make any sense. Who is? I don't recognize. I don't know what his policies are. Yeah, I think my trip is exactly 24 miles from Nokomis, Harriet, Calhoun, Lake of the Isles, and back is exactly 24 miles of marathon. Have I ever watched Future by Design? And what about yet? AI government would be best, is the best option. I've never watched Future by Design. I don't think Bernie Sanders would have been a good president because I think what makes a good president is somebody who keeps the economy going and keeps rich people happy, more or less. I think the only way, I don't think Bernie would have been able to do anything. Like if Bernie would have been willing to like crash the economy to get stuff done, he would be able to do stuff, but I don't think he's willing to do that. Jeremy, is it not true that if you can test and prove something supernatural is real, then it's no longer supernatural? Like, no. Like, supernatural would mean a new ontology, a new kind of stuff that is made up of something other than matter and energy, essentially. So you could have supernatural things that could be discovered and they would still be supernatural. You just have to make sure that they are discovered to be a new kind of ontology. Are you a doomer with global warming? No, I don't. I think the predictions are that global warming will kill about 10 million people in 100 years. But in 100 years, 7 billion people will die. Because it's 100 years, all people on Earth will die. So it's the projections aren't actually that bad for global warming. Like 10 million people will die or something. Yes, single issue bills, no omnibills. All right. All right, I'm going to get off and get some ice cream probably. Why not?